Thank you, Alexa. For the audience, g'day and kia ora. Before we start, I would like to acknowledge the traditional owners and the custodians of the land upon which we meet today. I pay my respects to the elders, past, present and emerging, and I would extend that respect to all Aboriginal peoples present with us today. I'm thrilled to welcome you. Thank you so much for taking time out of your busy schedules to spend with us today. Alexa, please take us through what's planned for today's keynote.
Iain, it would be my pleasure. Over the next 90 minutes, you will learn about how customers across Australia and New Zealand are using AWS to innovate and deliver results to students, individuals and citizens. And you will be the first to learn exciting new announcements that will help foster even more innovation with AWS Cloud.
Fantastic. Again, welcome. This is our 7th public sector conference here in Canberra, and we're excited to kick things off. We're a bit different here at AWS. We love to tell stories through our customers. But first, I'd like to acknowledge the supporters who bring programs like this to us all here. Intel, from a global sponsorship point of view, who's been a partner of ours now for more than a decade. VMware, whose solution, Cloud Health by VMware, allows you to consolidate visibility across cloud and on-premise infrastructure. And finally, VM, who are doing incredible work providing solutions for our public sector customers around cloud backup and data protection. To our gold sponsors, Veritas, I beg your pardon, and the Mantel Group, thank you so much for your ongoing support. And our silver sponsors, Deloitte, Dynatrace, Elastic, Fortinet, NextDC, Pure Storage, and Trend Micro. And please, if you get the time, spend some time with our exhibitors in the Solutions Expo. To give you a scene setting around the scale and size of this particular summit, you're amongst around 1,200 attendees today. It's quite a remarkable event which grows and grows every single year. And as part of that, we've got over 50 technical sessions for you to dive deep on our technology and experiment and try new things. We often get asked, why do we do these things? Because fundamentally, our conferences are learning conferences. This is not your traditional sales and marketing conference. We tell unique stories that are authentic through the eyes of our customers. We're here to learn. We're here to learn and experiment with new ideas and new concepts and new services, because at AWS and with our customers and partners, we see ourselves as builders, and we're passionate about innovating for the future. And here's the thing, what we love to see from our customers is where their efforts leave this place a little bit better off than when we found it. And it's just remarkable. We're incredibly proud to think about how the AWS Cloud can positively impact citizens. And more importantly, we're here to listen and learn. Your feedback directly influences what we do in our business. And let's take a quick snapshot on how we're performing. AWS now is a run rate business exceeding $33 billion per year with 37% year-on-year growth. It's just remarkable. And cloud computing is growing at such an incredible pace. These numbers really reflect one thing, and it's how fast our customers are adopting the cloud in order to drive down cost, improve innovation, move faster, and improve security. And we've got an enormous responsibility we take very, very seriously, and that's to innovate on your behalf. And to give you a scale of that increasing innovation, we see this as a really important metric. We want to ship as many new features that you ask for as humanly possible within a given year, because 95% of our roadmap is actually driven by your direct feedback. The remaining 5% is actually where we interpret what you've asked for on your behalf and find a way to solve that problem at scale for you. And we're not slowing down, we're just getting started, because we listen to what you need and we're moving as fast as we can to deliver what you're asking for. The more you ask, the more we give. And here's the thing, you're not required to use all these services. You can pay as you go, consume as you want, you can stop and start, you can experiment, you can do whatever you want to do. If you don't enjoy the service, you can stop using it. We're here about delighting our customers. It's so important to us here at AWS. And here's the thing, we believe in choice. We fundamentally believe that choice is the most important asset we can provide to you. And freedom of choice is important in all our customer feedback. When we think about scale, though, we think about global infrastructure because it's not just about the tools. We've got 22 geographic regions around the world, spanning 69 availability zones. And we've announced plans for 9 more AZs and 3 more regions based in South Africa, Indonesia, and Italy. And we're not done. We're just getting started. This infrastructure is built on a single foundation of security. It's the highest priority at AWS. And remember, when we look at your data and the traffic that's flowing, we take responsibility for encrypting all traffic on the AWS global and regional networks between our secured facilities. And this means you can focus on your mission because we're doing our very, very best in our part to keep you safe. If we look at the types of organisations that have adopted the AWS cloud, it's just remarkable. Organisations of every conceivable size and shape are consuming our platform at a remarkable pace and innovating in our particular area to delight customers as citizens. And enterprises big and small. Examples locally such as the National Australia Bank, Qantas and Canberra. And if we then scan into the public sector customers, it's incredible. 5,000 government agencies around the world, 10,000 academic institutions, and over 28,000 non-profit organisations around the world. And locally, leading organisations like Australia Post, the Australian Bureau of Statistics, and the ATO are solving problems at scale on the AWS cloud. But that's not all, because what we're seeing is a wave of adoption around our SaaS and ISV community because they get the chance to move faster and focus on their mission using AWS. And for more of this detail, please visit our exhibitors in the Solutions Expo in the hall. If we actually think, though, about scale, the way we can move faster is through a deep network of our consulting partners. Our consulting partners are a really, really important mechanism for scale at AWS. This partner ecosystem allows us to move faster. And it's a force multiplier. We have an amazing network of partners, and just thank you for your ongoing support on behalf of our customers. If we then drill down locally in Australia and New Zealand, it's remarkable to see how fast our government customers in education and health and not-for-profit are adopting the cloud. We've got some great examples here, and just to call out a couple like Cloud 10 and Contino and Veritas, remarkable organisations. And from a customer point of view, just incredible. The momentum is unbelievable. And the more you push us, the faster we move. So thank you, and keep that feedback flowing. If you think beyond security, though, the question is, how do we help you move faster? And really, from the technology to the team to our partners, we think very deeply about how we actually design you to move fast and help you move fast. And if we look at the legacy estate, this is really what typical customers see today, a quite complex group of technologies, some batch, rarely real time. And the customers I speak to tell me one thing consistently. Sometimes the custom code you're running is so old, the people who can support it are no longer on the planet. And that poses a challenge for you on how we actually maintain those services. And sometimes we see customers who purchase services under a very restricted and constrained licensing model, which really dictates to you how the software should be used. And we just see a different way of working with you. So what you end up with is lots on the shelf, which never gets used. We just don't believe in that. It's not part of our DNA. What we see, though, is a single platform which is really optimized for builders, for creators, for innovators. And what we want to do is actually keep pace with that platform to move as fast as you want us to. Our customers and partners fundamentally become builders. And as builders, they can work on a single platform that allows you to consume over 165 services, because one size does not fit all, and you need choice and freedom of choice. And you get the core advantages of agility, elasticity, cost saving, security, and the ability to deploy globally in minutes. And you've got the freedom to act on your information, build workloads, and move fast. And if we go one step beyond, well, how do we mobilize and organize to help you? And the answer is, look, in this self-service environment, you can move fast, but when you come and ask us for help, we're there for you. We've got your back. And you don't need to be alone, because we see this as one team journey. We want to help you address the unique challenges you face but also seize new opportunities and help you transform your work with AWS and really move fast. We're here when you need us. What we find as well is that a greater pace of adoption is included in the AWS marketplace, where we've got close to 5,000 listings, which allow you to select from a curated software catalog and deploy on a pay-as-you-go basis. It's really extraordinary to consume and to experiment in really interesting ways using the marketplace. It allows you to access both open source and third-party software, and close to 5,000, 4,800 to be specific, listings in the marketplace today. When we think about acceleration, we think about working harder for you to create programs to help you move faster. A few of these will be the Database Freedom Program, where we allow you to move away from restrictive database licensing. Our Windows Rapid Migration Program, which lets you move very quickly for versions of SQL Server which may have retired or lapsed support. And more broadly, our Migration Application Program, which provides technical support, migration assistance, and best practice to move those large workloads. And as of June this year, we announced Cloud Endure, which is an incredible program at no cost to you, which lets you build a highly automated solution to move and rehost large numbers of machines to AWS. So with that all being said, what are we seeing from customers? What we're seeing is that all of you are embarking on a remarkable journey of transformation. And we see this in 4 areas. We see areas of social transformation, individual transformation, government transformation, and economic transformation, underpinned by the highest priority at AWS, which is security. So let's explore some customer stories around the change we're seeing in this transformational agenda that you're using AWS for. From a social perspective and social transformation, it's quite remarkable. What we're seeing is an increased use of AI and ML. Our mission statement is to put machine learning in the hands of every developer. We want to make this so easy and simple to use that all developers and data scientists can build intelligent apps that become a common part of your business. How have we gained this experience over time, and how have we worked on these solutions for our customers? It comes from a long heritage. It comes from our personalized recommendation engine. It comes from our fulfillment automation. It comes from inventory management or voice interactions through Alexa. Or our newest innovation, the storefronts, which is called Amazon Go, which is just incredible. If you're ever in town in Seattle, please use that. It's a remarkable experience, and it's kind of a cool time to geek out as well. And this goes back more than 20 years. So we've got rich experience. We're using this knowledge to innovate even faster based on your feedback. So please keep that coming, and thank you. If we look at some examples around AI and ML, National Health Service, what a remarkable story here, where they used Amazon Lex to reduce call wait times, and the chatbot was able to handle 40% of their incoming call traffic. It meant that the people actually staffing the call center could use their time more efficiently and be highly utilised in that particular time. And they could actually focus on patient outcomes. And there's nothing more frustrating for our in-field workforce when you see a patient and you're stuck doing something else and you can't provide the care you want. So giving these people that freedom is just remarkable and so exciting. And locally, Australia Post, who actually took machine learning to find unpaid bills and itemise when they need to pay. They did this by looking at an email account and scanning that inbox. They then tried to find the post-pay logo, check out the barcode, and they put it into a bill scanning system which is hosted on AWS. And finally, in this segue of stories, and one of the pieces which I find personally important is skin vision. And I'll tell you a quick story. In June this year, I was having dinner with my father-in-law. Let's just call him Bruce, which is a very Australian thing to do. And what we did was spoke about the cars we couldn't afford. We spoke about the things we wished we could do together. And we also spoke about the fact that the 60s were better, and how would I know that, right? So thank you, Bruce, for that. And I got up and got a cup of tea and walked back and I said, mate, there's a bump on your head. Nah, I'm fine. Okay. I said, I've got this app. I'll take a photo of it. And it just so happened I used the Skin Vision app from a personal basis and took the photo of his head. It scanned it and it said there's a high risk. I showed him this. I took that 30 seconds to explain that AI and ML helps us solve problems faster, and it should be in the hands of consumers, not to self-diagnose, but to get through that first initial piece of, I'm a bloke, I don't need to go to the doctor. To his credit, he saw his GP, got referred to a specialist, and within 4 weeks of that first photo I took, had a golf ball-sized melanoma removed from his head. That's the impact we're seeing from a social perspective, to put that power in people's hands and change the way we live. And when I think about changing the way we live, I think about an incredible, a mighty not-for-profit called Thorn. Alexa, could you please introduce our first customer speaker?
Please welcome to the stage, Head of Product Management at Thorn, Kristin Boorse.
Thank you for having me. Before I begin, I want to be explicit about the fact that I will be sharing my experience working with one of the darkest parts of humanity, child sexual abuse. And although these issues are extremely difficult to hear about, we have to be willing to look at them in full light so we can build a world where every child can simply be a kid. Now, I don't need to tell you guys that technology has transformed our world, for good and for bad. And just as technology has made most of the things in our world faster, more global, and more connected, it has had the same impact on the spread of child sexual abuse material. Child sexual abuse material is the documentation of child sexual abuse that is shared in online communities and distributed around the world. In my role as head of product management at Thorn, I dive into the darkest parts of the internet to understand how technology fuels child sexual abuse. When I was first introduced to a horrifying case of child sexual abuse at Thorn, I was going about my day and was called into a conference room, and I heard about what we knew about her story. She was just a little girl. She was probably in middle school when her sexual abuse began. She was being abused 2 times a week. And we were watching her grow up year over year as she moved from one grade to the next. Her abuser meticulously documented it all and published his abuse of her in forums dedicated to this subject. And he was technically astute. He took every measure to protect his identity and stay under the radar. And once investigators opened the case, it took another 1.5 years to identify and find her. By the time she was identified, hundreds of images and videos documenting her rape had moved beyond these dedicated abuse forums and had gone viral across the internet, in peer-to-peer networks, private chats, and open websites we all use. And today, as she tries to recover, she lives with the knowledge that thousands around the world continue to watch her abuse. And this case isn't unique. The amount of child sexual abuse content circulation today is massive and growing. Last year in the US alone, there were more than 45 million images and videos of suspected child sexual abuse that were sent to National Center for Missing and Exploited Children. And that's more than double the year reported previously. And the reality behind these numbers is hard to contemplate, with most of the images with children younger than 12 featuring sexual and violent acts. And here's what's so hard about this case, and the majority of these cases. Her abuse was widely distributed for 2 years before anyone even knew to look for her. And by the time she was identified, her abuse had endured for more than 5 years. And abusers have been really quick to leverage new technologies. Yet as a society focused on protecting our children, we haven't. You see, these communities of abusers are just that. They're a network of highly connected individuals who work together, yet our response has not. There are millions of known CSAM files that are represented by hash values. And a hash, in its most basic form, is a digital fingerprint of that file. And these millions of CSAM files live siloed inside the walls of law enforcement agencies and companies alike. And I will be so bold to say, we failed this little girl. Our team was in despair, the clock was ticking, and the stakes were so high. And we had sat helplessly as she lingered in her abuse when we could see the intersection points in the investigation at which the right tools could connect the information investigators needed to solve this case faster. And because we saw this as complete and utter failure, not only for us, but us as a society, we asked ourselves, what if we could use the latest technology to connect disparate data sources of known child sexual abuse content and find victims faster around the world? And what if industry had shared amongst themselves so they could identify, remove, and report this content? Our goal was an alarm bell on the desks of officers around the world whenever someone dared post a new victim's abuse online. We never want a child to linger for years with the world watching before somebody even starts to look for them. And at Thorn, that's what we're doing. We build technology to connect the dots and empower a critical set of people on the front lines with the tools that they need. For law enforcement, it helps them find kids faster, reducing trauma, arresting abusers, and reducing the supply of content. And second is for industry. It can halt the spread of new material and take down old material across the open web, starving a community of their currency and ultimately eliminating the trade online. And it's working. Our software has helped identify more than 10,000 victims. Our investigators report a 65% time savings in utilizing our applications, and it's in use by over 55 countries, including Australia. And that is simply by connecting the dots, leveraging those millions of known hashes around the world in a new, meaningful way. And we are well on our way to the alarm bell. We recently embarked on a second big area of our work, activating industry to stop the viral spread of this horrific content. Today in the US, 98% of the reports of child sexual abuse content, those 45 million images, come from approximately 12 companies. Those companies that you can imagine have the fortune and the afford to build those systems needed to identify these material. But once you get beyond the largest and you go to the small and medium-sized platforms, they either could never conceive that their platform would be abused in this way, or they don't have the systems that they could build on their own. So we built one that they can share. It's a system that gets smarter with more of the hashes of known abuse material we integrate. The more pieces of data we have, we can provide, they can find more, and what we see is each of these clues often leads to abuse material that no one in the world has seen before. Our first beta partner is Imager, one of the largest sites in the US, with millions of pieces of user-generated content uploaded daily. Within 20 minutes of using Safer, Imager found, removed, and reported a known piece of abuse content. But then what they did next is they took a proactive step, and they reviewed the user's account, where they found and they reported more abuse content that wasn't even in our system. When we've connected the dots by activating hundreds of companies and thousands of officers around the world, we will reach the point where technology will have enabled us to outrun the perpetrators and dismantle the communities that normalize and fuel child sexual abuse. And that's exponential impact. We know that we cannot do this work alone. It takes partners across industry, NGOs, and law enforcement agencies to defend happiness. And Amazon has been at our side as we embark on building prototypes all the way to testing to production. And the clock is always ticking, and we know we can't build everything on our own, and nor should we with our small but mighty team. We've taken advantage of best-in-class technology like the services AWS offers that integrate throughout our entire tech stack, from authentication, messaging, storing, scaling, machine learning, and more. We know that it takes more than one Thorn to defend a child. And we focused our vision and prepared our work against one of humanity's darkest evils. And we will not stop until every child can simply be a kid. Thank you.
It's just incredibly humbling to see the impact our customers are having using the AWS cloud, using core services like AI and ML to solve some of our darkest problems. And we will continue to stand shoulder to shoulder with Thorn in their mission, and I thank them for being part of our keynote today. When I think about social transformation, I also think about the environment. If we're going to leave this place a little bit better off than we found it, I'll turn our eyes to that. And so at Amazon, we take a lot of thought, we think a lot about sustainability, and we're committed to it. And our long-term goal is to make sure that all of our data center and our global infrastructure uses 100% renewable energy. And we're making pretty good progress. Our Montreal, Canada region that was just launched, over 90% of our facility is actually powered by hydroelectric power. And we also utilise recycled water for cooling where possible. And this is part of our overall goal as an organisation. At Amazon, we're committed to sharing our sustainability goals, and we plan to share our company-wide carbon footprint later this year. And so when I think about that social transformation and leaving the place a little bit better off than we first found it, I think about the things we see when we drive and visit the bush, the beach, and the forests. And the Department of Conservation are one of our customers that is thinking in extraordinary long term around the impact on the environment and preserving the unique attributes of New Zealand. Alexa, will you please introduce our second customer speaker?
Please welcome to the stage, Chief Information Officer, Department of Conservation New Zealand, Mike Edginton.
I'm just going to go back a slide, if that's okay. The kakapo, one of the world's rarest birds. And this year we had the most successful breeding season ever. And we shifted it from about 137 birds to 200 birds. We have a highly, highly dedicated team that looks after this. And one of the great things that I was able to do with that team last year was to build a new database for us to manage the digital twin of every one of these birds. And we've been able to share this externally as well, but it made the life of every ranger out in the field looking after these kakapo, and they're highly dedicated and committed people. It made their life a lot easier. So, you've seen that one. The Department of Conservation, we manage about a third of the land area of New Zealand, and we're critical to the tourism industry, we're obviously critical to the environment in New Zealand, but we partner with hundreds of local agencies, we partner with other government agencies to enable us to manage this third of New Zealand. We have over 8 million hectares of land under our management. And the biggest threat that is posed today is predators. Predators like rats, like stoats, and possums, those nice things that run around your parks here in Australia, they're a threat to our wildlife and to our environment. I want to talk a little bit about my career, and it starts a long time ago, but in April 1995, a platform at Cave Creek collapsed. And the inquiry found that there was systemic failure, that the department was underfunded, and it was almost bound to happen. The response was that we would go out and replace approximately 3,500 assets out there. My job in this was to actually build an asset management system, build the tools that were required to ensure that this would never happen again. And coming out of that, I learned a great deal about the use of data. And I've called it here, we built a digital twin of the assets. We actually understood the tourism infrastructure that the department had right down to the last bolt on every bridge. And using that information and using the models, we were able to build a business case that went to government, and it delivered an additional budget of $1 billion for us to manage assets. In my job, I've had this great opportunity to work across all of the, pretty much all of the functions that the department does out in the field, and through that Cave Creek tragedy, learn a lot more about what it takes to run an agency like ours. And I've got a couple of observations about running an agency that looks after tourism. And looks after the natural environment. We have to compete for resources across the whole of government. That's what all agencies probably face. But ours in particular relies on human effort, and we have to put thousands of people into the field pretty much every day to do that job. We use technologies that are relatively old now, and I'm talking here about traps for trapping stoats and rats. I'm talking about toxins that we spread around the landscape to kill those rodents. But it also requires a social license to operate. And that social license comes about through our participation with our communities and also through the politics of the politics of conservation. Part of this job for me has been to build an environmental digital twin so that all of our environmental data is accessible, not just within the department, but to all of our partner agencies, and to make the investment very, very visible to all, so that we can understand a lot more about what it takes to manage this really, really precious real estate that we look after. Over the last 5 years, you can see on this map here how much 1080 we've been able to apply over the landscape to manage these predators. And you can see that we're not actually getting to the nub of the problem. With predators spread across all of New Zealand, we are actually holding them at bay. We're not winning the game. Building this digital twin also involves understanding the soundscape and the assets that are already out there for us to use. And a project that we did earlier this year with AWS and one of our key partners was to decode Kiwi calls. And we used AI and machine learning to enable us to see the noise in the landscape. Understanding that noise can tell you something about where you should be working. And so that's great, and that tells us about what's going on in the landscape. But down in the southwest corner of Fiordland National Park, we have a lot of traps applied, and we built a digital portal that enabled us to bring all of our data together. And we've zoomed in a little bit here on a particular piece of Fiordland National Park. It's about as remote as you can get in New Zealand without going to subantarctic islands. And down there, you can see the trap density spread across that landscape is relatively high. It's high density, there's a high workload to maintain it, and it's very hard to access. That model, that information is gold. And using our asset management background and using what happens when we can take this data, we scaled it out and we applied it across all of the landscapes that the department manages. And going up to the north end of the island, looking at a very small reserve, we found that this reserve would require approximately 1,800 traps to just maintain or keep the stoats at bay. When scaled out across all of the terrain that the department manages, we found that the total value or cost of putting stoat traps across the landscape was going to be $3 billion, and the maintenance of that is going to be $1 billion. That's an absolutely extraordinary amount of money, given that we're an agency that has about a $500 million budget each year. So this is not an enterprise that one agency can take on. This is one that the whole community and the whole of New Zealand has to take on. So, just rounding it out and what we've achieved over the last year or so, we've developed a data portal, which we do want to make available to all those who are involved in conservation. We've built a digital twin of Kakapo, and we've enabled the Kakapo team to work more efficiently and effectively. We've decoded Kiwi calls so that those who are involved in the Kiwi protection can now record and hear what's going on in the darkness of the night. And we've modelled our current methods to understand what the total cost in using that technology will be going forward. What does the future look like for us? Well, I think it looks like a data lake. It looks like open source data and sharing that data so that many can use our code and our data to improve conservation technologies. It involves employing our resources far more effectively across the landscape, and I hope that it involves us being able to use machine learning and new technologies to operate 24/7. Thanks, everyone. Welcome to the world of conservation. It's complicated out there and it can be dangerous, but I think with more data and more activity across the whole of the community, we're going to be a lot better off at managing our natural environment.
Imagine that challenge. You know, dear Mike, could you please avoid $4 billion worth of costs? Regards, the government of New Zealand. What a remarkable challenge. And again, super proud to be working with our partners and our customers to solve those sorts of problems, shoulder to shoulder. Just remarkable. And around social transformation, I've got to call out the folks at Swinburne. You know, we launched our cloud innovation at Swinburne earlier this year, and it's been remarkable. We're using cloud technologies with Swinburne and their students and challenge sponsors to solve problems for social good. And Swinburne is part of a large group of organisations now around the world that are using technology for good to solve the most immediate problems that we face day to day. Just remarkable. And so if we move from social transformation to the transformation of government, there's one thing which we need to speak very clearly and precisely about, and that's a matter of security and compliance. Because we see moving to the cloud as an incredibly powerful way to improve your security posture. We invest more in security than almost any organisation can invest themselves, and once you've made the move to the cloud, we offer programs and certifications and resources that help you achieve new levels of security, even for the most sensitive workloads. And the landscape is complex and changing. The fact is that security has been our number one priority since the start of AWS, since day one. And here are the recent headlines that all of you face, and we have to help you defend. And that's why we've invested in some very sophisticated technology, which is simply called automated reasoning, which allows you to do math-based logic to answer the critical questions about your software and application space. And we're hearing you loud and clear about making more tools and training available. And so we've got a lot of security training which is available through aws.training and a range of programs from a security, identity, or compliance perspective, be it 3-day instructor-led training or teaching you hands-on best practices for security engineering. And if you're pursuing that certification piece, a certification achievement is now AWS Certified Security Specialty, and which is a course that helps you earn that credential and helps you prepare. You know, locally in Australia, we stand shoulder to shoulder. And be it policy or strategy, we are here to solve the most complex problems to manage customer data. And earlier this year, we achieved a certification which we simply called Engineered to Protected, which allows government data and research data up to that level of classification to be stored in the Sydney region in the AWS cloud. Importantly, it also allows you to store unclassified workloads in any region around the world. And again, we remain committed to helping you solve those policy and compliance challenges. And in terms of government transformation, what an incredible outcome we've just had with the Digital Transformation Agency, where we've been able to form a whole of government agreement to radically simplify the procurement process around the acquisition of cloud technology. This is a coordinated approach to digital sourcing, which will make it simpler, faster, and easier for agencies to buy technology, drive innovation, and get more value out of their investments. It's quite remarkable, and my thanks to the DTA for a very, very long conversation which has led to this agreement, and it's a fantastic outcome for all citizens and also for all levels of government. And this centralised agreement really lets agencies save costs from day one. Because due to the economies of scale we've achieved in aggregating that spend, it removes challenges around raising individual tenders and complex contracting and lets you move faster. We love it when you move faster. So I think it's really important that we spend some time around security. And I'd now like to introduce our keynote speaker. Alexa, will you please introduce our next speaker?
Please help me welcome to the stage, Simon Alicia, Head of Solutions Architecture, Australia and New Zealand Public Sector, Amazon Web Services.
Hello everyone, and thank you so much for choosing to spend your day with us here today. I want to spend a few minutes speaking with you about resilience, trust and control, and how we work with customers to provide that to each and every one of you. Resilience is really important. The ability to operate in the face of adversity is something that we deal with all the time. And what customers have told us is that we're able to provide them with a better foundation than ever before to build resilient and secure systems. We're able to innovate on their behalf in ways they may not have even thought of to deliver far better outcomes. And one of the ways we do this is by leveraging a regional infrastructure across the globe. And as Iain mentioned earlier, there are some 22 different regions and 69 availability zones. Now this is important to all of you because not only is there capacity in Sydney, but also the ability to go global in minutes, which is really important for our education and research sectors, but also important for those agencies that service citizens outside of Australia. What you may know is that we also manage over 4 million kilometres of network capacity and cabling, all of which is encrypted on your behalf. But it doesn't just stop there. Fundamental to the region construct is the concept called availability zones. And these availability zones aren't just one building, they're clusters of data centres grouped together to operate in isolation but in concert with one another. This allows customers to build highly resilient applications that span multiple data centres without the complexity or expense of building such things in the first place. They're far enough apart to allow meaningful failover while still providing synchronous replication. High bandwidth, low latency interconnects means that you can deploy databases and other application components with reliance and assurance. They're fed by separate power, separate cooling, and operated in an independent fashion. This gives you an unparalleled ability to not just provide resilience, but also scale, because many of these facilities are many hundreds of thousands of servers. But more importantly, it allows us to deliver on something that we care deeply about, which is our service to you, and to provide high service level agreements that allow you to keep downtime to an absolute minimum. And we don't rest till it's 100%, but we're also willing to commit to SLAs as you see behind me. But we understand that with this scale, it's incumbent on us to earn your trust each and every day when it comes to the security of the cloud and your operations within the cloud. So I want to peel back the layers a little bit on how we help you make this happen. We address this with many different layers in terms of protection. Number one is our custom hardware and software. We don't do things off the shelf. We custom design and build components specific for the task of serving our customers. Now, you may have read articles about side channel attacks and supply chain attacks. We read these articles too. And these concepts aren't catching us by surprise. We employ highly stringent standards across our supply chain, investigating all hardware and software prior to it going into production, and constantly auditing and managing our own activities and our supply chain partners. When was the last time you checked on your supply chain? This we do on behalf of our own customers. We also provide advanced physical security monitoring that I'll share with you some details of shortly, and world-leading data destruction from disk capacity. What this means is that data does not leave a facility at all. And finally, we have the opportunity to learn from all the customers that choose to put their trust in AWS. We operate millions of workloads each and every day. These workloads generate billions of events, and we analyse, process, and learn from these. And we use these to design and build and deliver to our customers industry-leading security solutions. Let me give you an example of how this sort of works conceptually. Imagine you're driving along, it's a rainy night, and you're driving in your car and you're going maybe a little bit too fast, and you skid. And you learn, better not drive that fast in these conditions. Imagine if a self-driving car was doing the same thing. Not only would it learn the lesson, but all the other cars using similar models would also learn the lesson. This is analogous to what we do on our customers' behalf. So let me peel back a little bit more about some of this custom hardware of which I speak. And this is a technology we call Nitro. And this technology was developed to address a number of significant customer problems. Firstly, we recognise that customers are wanting more and more different kinds of compute, network and storage capability at a faster rate than ever before. People aren't willing to wait 2, 3, 5-year hardware refresh cycles anymore. And we realised that we had to decouple the way hardware is built. So the Nitro technology uses a microservices concept applied to both software and hardware, so that all the peripheral activities, network, storage, encryption, etc., are offloaded from the main board of the machine. What this means is that we can iterate super quickly on all the different components and track and lead those technology changes for customers. Secondly, what we're able to do is take away some of the difficult choices you had to deal with in the past around performance versus security. I'm sure many of you in this room have been hovering over that decision point of saying, I've got to encrypt this data, but I know it'll incur a 10, 20, 30, even 40% overhead, or I'll need to have a bigger box to cope with that. The Nitro technology means we're able to deliver line rate encryption of both data in flight across the network and at rest on storage without any impact on performance. What we also did is recognise that the world is constantly under threat and changing from different actors, and we need to upgrade software all the time. Again, I'm sure many of you in the room have experienced countering different attacks or having to roll out patches across vast fleets of servers, and we all know that that's a trivial, simple and easy process, is it not? So what we designed in this system is the ability to upgrade all the software live without affecting the customer workload at all. What this means is you can get advantage of all the mitigations and protections immediately as they're discovered without having to make that critical decision of how long do I wait to counter that new zero-day vulnerability. And finally, we provide much better security and isolation. So the core component of the Nitro system is a control element, and this is essentially a hardware root of trust. It uses very sophisticated, yet somewhat simple and straightforward cryptographic techniques to monitor and manage all the connectivity and all the components in the environment, and to verify that they have not been tampered with or intruded with in any way before boot takes place. Once the boot process commences, it also goes and gets a secure golden image or boots to bare metal for the customer to deploy their own image on that particular piece of infrastructure. Now, one of the nice things about this is, firstly, again, there is no overhead from virtualization. The virtualization is offloaded running on those ancillary Nitro systems. This means that you as the customer gets all the performance and capacity of the main board of the server. The other nice thing is there's no DOM 0 or domain 0 concept on the machine itself. There is no capability to or reason to SSH to the machine. Humans can't and don't connect to it. The only way to manage the machine is through the Nitro controller, through authenticated, authorised and logged API calls. This is a tremendous difference in the way you can secure your environment. So let me share with you a little bit about physical security. Clearly, we run many, many locations around the world, and we want to track what's going on at all of them. Now, we don't allow people in our data centres willy-nilly. You can't come and tour them. In fact, I'd argue that if a data centre provider offers you a tour, that's a pretty good indication it's not a particularly secure data centre environment. So how do we cope with protecting our environment? We deploy literally tens of thousands of digital cameras globally. And these gather vast amounts of information. But it wasn't working very well for us. We were using NVR technology, storing data locally. Anytime we wanted to figure out what happened between this time and that time, we had to do a complicated download process, transfer data, etc. Sound a bit like undifferentiated heavy lifting? Sure does. And then we sat back and said, well, surely there's a better way. And there is. We can use our own services to solve this problem. Using Kinesis video data streams and Amazon S3, we're able to stream high-resolution 4K 30 frames per second footage from these tens of thousands of cameras and store all that footage to be available on demand. And the benefit is, once we're able to do this, we could apply sophisticated machine learning and computer vision to track patterns within the environment. Where does someone normally walk to replace a disk drive, for example? Where shouldn't they be? What does an anomaly look like? And then we're able to alert on those anomalies. Furthermore, whenever we deploy a new region, that region has the benefit of all the lessons learned from other facilities that have had those models trained in them. Now, this is a fascinating new initiative, and we're seeing a lot of customers starting to deploy this in their own physical locations as well. Now, one of our purposes is to provide you as a customer with the ultimate in security building blocks in the cloud. We may look after the security of the cloud. We want you to help you look after the security in the cloud. And we do this by giving you a variety of tooling. Things that enable you to manage certificates simply. Sophisticated identity and access management policy-based controls. Industry-leading technologies such as guard duty, which can automatically detect strange things happening in your environment and allow you to take action based upon them. Could be crypto mining, could be side attacks, any sort of thing. All learning from the constant lessons of these billions of events we're talking about. We also want you to have the ultimate in protection from a networking perspective, including services like Shield and Shield Advanced that protect you against large-scale DDoS attacks. The public sector is often in the sights of adversaries. We provide our customers with the best protections against those adversaries. But we try and make it as simple and as accessible as possible. So we focus on policy-based security. So for example, you can set a policy that says, only allow a particular type of compute instance to be launched from a particular gold image in a particular network location with particular ports open, and make that a policy. And nothing else can happen besides that. And you can even enhance that policy by saying only within certain periods of time, or from certain locations or certain users. This becomes immensely powerful. And as Iain mentioned earlier, we're using automated reasoning to mathematically prove the efficacy of these policies. How do you prove that a policy is working at scale? With some pretty heavy-duty maths. Something else you can do with just the click of a button is secure and make all your data private. When you create an AWS account and you create any S3 buckets, they are secure by default and private by default. You have to explicitly open them up. Now, there are often many good reasons to open them up for data sharing and collaboration, etc. But you may say, well, no, I've got a policy that there's no reason for this ever to be opened up. By using this single click, you provide complete protection against anything inadvertent taking place. We want to make it easy for you to be secure and stay secure whilst remaining agile. This also feeds into the concept of third-party audits. This is something that's changing a lot. Trust but verify is a term you would have heard quite frequently, and audits is one way we do this. But the audit world is changing. It is no longer acceptable to audit once a year, fill out a spreadsheet, answer some questions and call it good. Audit agencies, compliance agencies and customers themselves are starting to demand real-time live auditing. Show me that I'm secure, show me that I'm compliant to all these regulations and requirements all the time. So we're moving away from a paper-based approach to an automated approach, taking advantage of persistent automation, near-instant visibility, and beginning to be able to react to things in near real time. So it's not just understanding that there's a problem, but resolving it as well. So this brings me to control. So if you agree that the cloud is resilient and you see the steps we take daily to earn your trust, then it becomes really about your own security goals in regards to your organisation and how you want to deal with them. Because really, you're not owning a data centre anymore, you're owning your data and controlling your data. So customers said to us, we have sovereignty requirements. Data cannot leave certain geographies for particular types of workloads. Can you help us with that? And the short answer was yes. You can lock your data to a particular region anytime you want. And you can choose that it only stays there and it never moves. In fact, from day one, when you use AWS, we've always maintained that customers have complete control over their data. They choose which region it's stored in, who has access to it, what format it looks like, and when it's copied or deleted. But we wanted to go further and allow you to prohibit the use of any other region outside of your own jurisdiction that you want to control. And that is now available across all of our services, and again, is one policy change. Furthermore, if you operate in a more flexible environment, but you still want to detect whether things are taking place in regions that you probably shouldn't be operating in, we can do that immediately and in an automated fashion. Everything is transparent. You maintain complete control. Now, one thing about protecting data is you need a multi-layered effect. No one security control is the silver bullet for everything. So cryptography is a key element of this. In fact, if you've ever gone to one of Werner Vogel's speeches, you will have heard him talk about the fact that you should dance like no one's watching, but encrypt like everyone is. And I think it's wise counsel. So we try and make this easy for our customers, and we do a lot of work before it even gets into customers' hands. At the physical layer, all of our networks are encrypted using AE256. So the wire is already, or the fibre I should say, is already encrypted. We encrypted the data link layer, then the network layer on top of that, offering encryption within your virtual private cloud and even when you're peering between virtual private clouds. We also provide TLS protection at the transport layer, including our S2N open source technology available to all customers, highly performant network load balancers, and encryption at CloudFront, just to name a few. And at the application layer, we provide the AWS Crypto SDK, because the number one rule of crypto is don't roll your own crypto. So we have some very smart folks who do it for you. Speaking of those smart folks, it's interesting, they're already thinking of what encryption looks like in a post-quantum world. Quantum computing promises to unlock vast amounts of compute processing power, which would render much existing encryption technology obsolete. We're not letting that catch us unawares, and we're innovating around that on behalf of you. But we want to make it easy for you to implement security, because security is everyone's job. And we know that managing key material, rotating credentials, and applying encryption to services can be hard. So we've worked very hard on our AWS Key Management Service, KMS, to integrate it with 117 AWS services, where with just the click of a button, you turn on encryption without affecting performance, but dramatically improving your security posture. And we also take care of all those nuances of certificate rotation and refreshment, and provide application developers efficient and secure ways to get access to sensitive material in a secure and reliable way. But customers also said, you know what, we can't manage what we can't see, and we want to see the traffic that's transiting our VPC. So recently we announced for our Nitro-based technology the ability to do traffic mirroring, the ability to analyse each and every packet that's going through the network. Now this is tremendously different to how this was done traditionally. Traditionally you'd implement a bump in the wire or very expensive and complicated agents on servers. This is simply the activation of a feature completely transparent to the host, which can be deployed in over 19 different security systems, including those on our marketplace. Customers also said they wanted a better visibility in all these great security things that Amazon's giving them to get a better overall view of their environment. So we recently introduced, including in the Sydney region, AWS Security Hub, which is a central view to manage all your security alerts and automate your security compliance checks. And this is the secret sauce to make your life far more low risk. What Security Hub allows you to do is to not just detect that something has gone out of policy, but to remediate it in near real time. For example, a developer accidentally opens a port that they shouldn't have opened. In the past, that may not have been found ever, except by an adversary. In the Security Hub model, it's detected automatically. The notification goes through to CloudWatch. CloudWatch calls a Lambda function to automatically close that particular port. That's a high sleep at night factor. Another example may be guard duty detects that a crypto miner has been deployed on a particular instance in your environment. The system will automatically remove that from the load balancer, forensically segment it off for analysis later to understand who the threat actor is, and let you keep on with your processing. This is a really high level of security capability. Thank you so much for spending some time with us here today. I encourage you to keep on building, and remember at AWS, security is always our #1 priority. Thank you.
Thank you, Simon. Thanks, Simon. We've got a real treat coming up. If you can stick around, and you'll see some amazing technology really redefining the art of the possible. So we've got a fantastic customer story to close today. If we just review, though, education transformation, we hear you loud and clear. Beyond the customer stories that we've shared with you today, the #1 barrier we're hearing from you all loud and clear, and the #1 thing you flagged with us, is the urgent need to increase cloud talent. And we hear you. And we're focused on helping you to break through these barriers and improve and enhance skill development. And we're working super hard. We're pioneering new models for today and tomorrow, be it around engaging today's workforce, fostering skills amongst the next generation of workers, and working with institutions to provide hands-on learning opportunities. And let's spend a couple of minutes to deep dive in these. The first piece is to really consider, how do we scale our skills and how do we help you scale your skills? And we see part of this as being with AWS training, be it an on-demand library, be it classroom training with expert instructors, or our rich certification programs. And please drop by the Solutions Expo to learn more about these channels and these programs. What we're also hearing, though, is there's a need to assist with government transformation and help individuals transform the way they work. And so we've started working super hard around something we call digital transformation for government. And this is for senior political and operational leaders from around the world. And we've launched a new team to run this. We've actually brought on board Liam Maxwell, who's the former CIO of the UK government, and he's hosting tuition-free education for executives, and we're running these courses globally. There's some details on the screen behind me, but it's a fantastic way to help your political and operational leaders gain the skills they need to lead this new digital workforce. But we've been working super hard, and I want to spend a moment now to really drill down into what we're doing specifically in Australia. And if we look at our military forces in the ADF, we've got a remarkable opportunity of highly trained, highly professional, highly skilled people. Our military forces do more with the skills they have than most other armed forces in the world. And we thank you for your service. I'm proud to announce today AWS Educate for Veterans. And this is the first program which is being launched outside the United States, specifically for Australia. This allows veterans to help prepare for a future career in cloud. And the program is designed to help individuals gain the skills needed for in-demand cloud computing jobs and through online career pathways such as data scientists, cybersecurity, and cloud support engineers. You can train your people to deliver on the mission inside government. And this program places very specific and special value on the unique skills that these personnel can contribute to society. We're proud to offer Australia's veterans new assistance towards fulfilling and prosperous careers, and this is just at the leading edge of the tech industry's most cutting-edge areas like cloud computing. We're committed to preparing the next generation of IT and cloud professionals to help address this skills gap. And we're going to share more details in the coming months. But we hear you loud and clear, and we're working super hard to deliver to your expectations. You then consider the economic transformation we're seeing, and I think it's super important to call out the remarkable work from our partners and ISVs and startups. It's just extraordinary. We know very deeply that the startups of today are going to be major leading enterprises of tomorrow. We've seen that transition. It's just the new normal. And we're dedicated to helping all of them at every stage of their journey to increase the chance, the speed, and the magnitude of success. And we're dedicated to helping build out this sector. There are technical skills required to run it, and we're going to stand shoulder to shoulder and make sure you get them. We believe that the economy of the future is going to be built on innovative, fast-moving, technology-enabled companies. And this is a direct alignment to government policy. And we love to see how our small business partners flourish, innovate, and solve problems. And to name a few, it's just incredible to see the power of these startups such as Ronan, Blue Crystal, and Visualytics. The stories I love the most are the stories I hear when I travel, which is along the lines of, we employ 100 people in Wollongong, and we didn't have this company before the cloud. Or we have a very dedicated, highly skilled workforce in Bega, and we're developing software for enterprises and for government, and this didn't exist pre-cloud. This is the economic transformation we're seeing, and you are driving and really surprising and delighting us with the innovation you're bringing to market for our customers, so thank you. And it's just incredibly proud to be part of this movement to help startups and small and medium business drive success and momentum. And so if we contrast where we've come through a story of social transformation, dealing with some of the hardest and most difficult subjects that are on the internet and improving the lives for our children. We've dealt with preserving our environment for future generations and avoiding $1 billion worth of infrastructure costs. We've spent some time outlining our credentials around security. Always has been and always will remain our number one priority. We've spoken about government transformation, around transformation for digital and helping our leaders make better decisions through skills and new knowledge. And we've talked about economic transformation, where we're seeing this incredible momentum of small and medium business popping up all through regional Australia and regional New Zealand, driving the success of these platforms forward. And genuine thank you for that. But here's the thing. Beyond the transformation we're seeing, we love it when things surprise us, and there's a wow factor behind that technology that really delights us and makes us imagine. And we love to be curious at Amazon. And we have this saying, which is, what's the art of the possible? What can we imagine to break new barriers and to drive forward? And so I'm really excited by our closing speaker. Alexa, can you please introduce our final customer speaker?
Please welcome to the stage, co-founder, Little Ripper Group, Dr. Paul Scully-Power.
And now for something different. Talking about pushing the bounds of the possible. I've actually spent my life doing that. And I don't intend to stop now. Because I'm going to, in a few minutes, try and attempt something that has never been done before. And I can accept failure, but that's okay. But before I describe what I'm going to attempt to do, let me give you some background. Be good if this were, there we go. The background is this. I co-founded the Little Group when I came back from Washington, D.C. 4 years ago. And the River Group is dedicated to use high-tech for the saving of lives. And the first thing we did, because it is high-tech, is we formed an alliance with UTS, that's University of Technology in Sydney. And you might say, why did we pick them? It's damn simple. They are ranked number one in Australia for artificial intelligence. And you see on this slide too, there's the Westpac logo. Why is that there? Because we went to Brian Hartzer, who runs Westpac Bank, and said, Brian, we all know about the Westpac rescue helicopter service, but hey, mate, that's old tech, that's 20th century, why don't you come into the 21st century? And he said, what do you have in mind? And we said, we can do a lot that the Westpac Rescue Helicopter Service does with drones. and why don't we move into the 21st century? So he said, that's a great idea. And so Westpac is our major sponsor. So that's the background. When I say high-tech, everyone thinks they know what high-tech is. But the real power of high-tech is what I call integration. What we have today, we have big data, cloud analytics, artificial intelligence, robotics, high-definition communication, cryptology. I know a little bit about that. But the real power of high-tech today is to put all that together, and that's what we're trying to do. So, what I want to try and pull off right now is to fly our Westpac Little Rippers over 1,000 kilometres away in real time off Burleigh Heads in the Gold Coast. But the trick here is that we want to do it with the world's lowest latency. Latency is the time between when something happens over there and when you see it here. And obviously, in a high-risk environment, in an emergency situation, and especially with drones traveling maybe 100 kilometres an hour, we've got to reduce that latency. And so, we're launching already. You can see it. That's fantastic. But this latency issue is what we've been working with AWS about, because it's going to totally change emergency response. And here we have one of our Little Rippers, Westpac Little Ripper. There's one here. If this didn't work, if this demonstration didn't work, I was going to flash this one up and fly it in here just to show you, but unfortunately I don't have to do that. But so the big thing here is that we are now confident that the normal latency for 1,000 miles from a drone, it's never been done live from a drone before in front of an audience, so we've pulled that off, thank God. But the latency issue is big. It's typically 8 to 10 seconds. We have now got that down to less than 1 second. So that's absolutely cutting edge, high technology, state of the art, whatever you want to call it. I'll just let you watch this for a minute. So I say this is coming off from the inlet to Burleigh Heads there. There's usually a lot of sharks there. It's interesting, at Burleigh Heads they have a lot of sharks, and I'm going to talk about sharks in a minute, because one of the things we do with the Westpac Little Rippers, and a lot of you may have seen them on the beaches in New South Wales and in Queensland during the summer months. We fly these Little Rippers. We actually have some really cutting-edge artificial intelligence driving all this system, and we can automatically detect sharks. But this is just to give you an example of what we're doing now. It looks simple, but it's not, because obviously, who's taking the photographs? And the answer is a second Little Ripper. Think about it. Just think about it. And that's over 1,000 kilometres away, being beamed live here. But there's more. I can pull out my smartphone, put my fingerprint on it, and get it on an app. And we're releasing that today, this app, so that emergency managers, lifesavers, or whatever will be able to press one button on their smartphone, use our app, and see live any video streaming from one of our Little Rippers. So as I say, we're announcing that today. It will be on the App Store later today. So you're all here for the birth of something brand new. So in the interest of time, I might move on if we can just cut down the live demonstration thing. We've pulled it off. You know, in the defence world that I spent most of my life in, you never want to push the envelope too far, so we'll close it down. But you've seen the power of this, of having intelligence, whether it's man-made or artificial, from afar, beamed directly, low latency, to an audience like this. Now, one of the other things we pulled off last year, we were the first people in the world to save the lives of 2 teenagers off Lennox Head, which is northern New South Wales. I'm going to show you the footage now that was taken from that drone during that world first rescue. The story was we were training people on the beach at Lennox Head. Someone down the road alerted us that there were 2 teenage boys in distress about a kilometre down the beach. There was no patrols there. Could we help? We said yes. We sent our little ripper out there. You can see the 2 people there. We flew over them. We dropped one of our pods, which we have, again high-tech pods. When it hits the water, it actually inflates into a 4-person, 4 people it's big enough for 4 people to cling on to. And that's how we saved the lives of those 2 teenagers. That went around the world. There was huge publicity. But we feel good about using high tech for the saving of life. And this is the real footage on the day. You can see the big waves come in. One of the lads was pushed off the flotation device, but he was able to swim a couple of yards to get back on. And then the big waves with that flotation device actually propelled them into the beach like they were riding a surfboard. So there was 2 teenagers, 16 and 17, who are alive today because of this technology. But wait, there's more. Artificial intelligence is so important. I always say with my colleagues from UTS, we're in this together. We won the prize last year for the best artificial intelligence in the country. And I always say to my colleagues, I still can't figure it out, who's artificial and who's intelligence, and we're still working on that one. But the first thing we did with artificial intelligence on our drones was to say, we've got to protect people from sharks. Yeah, it's not that easy to fly over and spot sharks. It really isn't. If you go through the numbers and go through the tests, if you're flying a helicopter or flying a light plane, your success rate is somewhere between 15 and 30%. We figured that wasn't very good. So we've now developed this artificial intelligence on our drones that can fly over just outside the surf break and look for sharks, and we're absolutely confident we can do that with over 90% reliability. So we've changed the face of shark detection. Now, I'll give you an example of that. Here we are, taking off. This is not live, just in case you think it isn't. Don't do 2 magic tricks in a row. Houdini taught me that. But Shark Spotter, we're not, there we go. Sorry, I was on the wrong screen down here. Here we are taking off, not live, but it's almost self-explanatory. The artificial intelligence on that drone looks down at the ocean and instantly will enable you to see sharks because it'll actually highlight the shark for you. And more than that, it will distinguish between a shark and a dolphin and a whale or a stingray or anything else, so you know you're actually looking at a shark. So we've got the artificial intelligence so well trained that indeed we can discriminate between about 16 different types of marine life. We can also pick up people on board riders, sharks near board riders, but it does it all automatically. That's the great thing about it. Think about it, if you're sitting there watching a screen all day for a shark, you'll go to sleep. But if the artificial intelligence tells you there's a shark, and by the way, it sounds an alarm, you wake up. So that's pretty good. And we have some of our drones, we have a megaphone on it, so we can actually fly over the people on the surfboards and say, hey mate, better get out of the way, there's a shark 100 yards. It actually works. It actually works. And what works even more is we often see people getting caught in rips or about to get caught in rips or swimming near rips, and we can fly over and tell them, hey guys, might be a good idea if you go in the other direction, because otherwise you're going to run into a rip and we're going to have to come rescue you. So that has an effect too. So all of these things I'm talking about, it's amazing. I'm totally amazed at the amount of publicity we've got. It's been totally worldwide. You can see on the slide there, I think we've been on every magazine, every newspaper, every TV show in the world. It's sort of mind-boggling that, you know, a couple of little Aussie diggers can pull this one off, but we did. And just to sort of summarise this whole thing, so we got our Little Ripper, Westpac Little Ripper, lifesaver, flying. The thing that puts all this high-tech together, though, is the ASW cloud. Because with the low latency into the cloud, we are now able to sort of do the command and control of almost any rescue emergency service in the surf. We've been asked, for example, to go inland to some of the inland waterways and do the same thing, patrolling them, because it turns out there's a lot of drowning deaths in inland waterways in Australia during the summer. And by putting it all in the cloud and having it instantly accessible, we've got this command and control network second to none. And of course, the Queensland government recently knew all about what we were doing, so they said, hey, have we got a challenge for you? And they said, can you spot crocodiles for us? And crocodiles are pretty sneaky people, you know, they go dark water, muddy water, and sort of difficult. So we took on that challenge, and we're again announcing today that we've developed yet another type of spotter called the croc spotter for the Queensland government. So there you go, artificial intelligence, it's pretty damn good. To give you an idea in about 10 seconds of where we've come from, as I say, we put Shark Spotter to work first in late 2017. Reunion Island, a lot of people have never heard about that French island. They're probably the biggest shark colonies in the world, to such an extent they've permanently closed most of the beaches in Reunion Island. And so we've been there several times now. And the French government wants us to permanently put a system in, like I've described, so they can open the beaches for the first time in years in Reunion Island. Croc Spotter I've mentioned. And then finally, as I say, we put all this together, we integrate all these high technologies through the AWS cloud. So that means we can reach out anywhere in the world and use this technology. The next steps is we've just bought a long-range drone. There's a picture of it. What we're planning to do, because a lot of the people who lose their lives on the beaches are in unpatrolled areas. We're planning to fly long-range drones now. The first one's going to fly between Sydney and Newcastle. And then through AWS, through the cloud, we'll be able to monitor that whole stretch of beaches and react if there's an issue. So that's taking the whole thing further. Beyond that, the plans are to actually patrol all the beaches all the way around Australia every summer. I know that's a big ask, but I think we have some ideas on how we're going to do that. And almost finally, because there's a lot of departmental reps here, don't just think of drones as saving lives on beaches. Think about what drones can really do for your department. For example, you may be in transportation, you may be in infrastructure, you may be in science, you may be in border protection, you may be in fisheries, you may even be in defence. Think about what defence, think about what the Navy can do. You know, for 200 years, when we've lost people overboard, we throw them a life raft. Well, I can tell you, if you lose someone overboard at night, throwing a life raft doesn't help very much. But what we can have, think about it, if we had it on every ship with one of these, it doesn't have to be as big as that, it's a smaller drone, fitted with thermal infrared, press a button because everything is automatic these days. If someone goes overboard at night, launch the drone will find that person using thermal infrared probably in less than a minute, and then you can rescue them. The possibilities are endless, and again with high tech, with all the very smart sensors we're developing like LiDAR, thermal infrared, etc. The number of applications we can use for drones is enormous. There's a list here. I'm not going to read it. I'll let you read it. But as you sit there, think about where your business, where your department can use a drone. So finally, three things as takeaways. What have we achieved with AWS? One, I've mentioned the latency, so critical. It's an order of magnitude improvement from 10 seconds to less than a second, a world first. Number two, which is ability to have the shark spotter or any other spotter live on an app. Think about that. Who else has detected sharks anywhere in the world with an app on their smartphone? And number three is with the power of the cloud, and I'm a big believer in the cloud because I've seen what it can do in other domains. With the power of the cloud, we can take this technology and change the world. Thank you very much.
So I gave you a bit of a treat there, just redefine the art of the possible. And the reason why I love these customer stories is because we're focused on one really simple promise. Let's leave this place a little bit better off than when we first found it. Thank you, Dr. Paul, and thank you to all our customers today. Look, here's the thing. I'm just amazed. I'm amazed at how fast you're all building. And I think, you know, it would be remiss of me not to call out the fact that our major technical conference is coming up in December. And whilst you're amongst a network of peers here, we have an amazing network of builders that gather in Las Vegas every year, and having been there, it's just amazing to see 50,000 plus people in motion, excited and solving real-world problems. So please dive deep in the sessions, network and learn and ask us hard questions around skill development and with your peers. Please visit the Expo Hall and explore these fantastic solutions. Join us at reInvent and just imagine with us the art of the possible. Alexa, can you please take our attendees through the next set of activities?
Please join us in the exhibition hall for lunch, and over lunch we have a special session in Expo Theatre 2, a panel on transforming your business through diversity and inclusion. Then join us for the continuation of our program in the breakout session rooms. Also, make sure you stay around for our closing reception. You won't want to miss it.
Thank you. Thanks for coming. Go build.